Well, it is day 4 here at AWS reInvent, and the Pure Signal podcast is on the scene as we have been all week. Myself, Ryan Medellin, alongside our North American CEO, Kevin Erickson.
Hey, when you say 4 days, we mean 4 weeks, right? It feels like we've been here for 4 weeks at this point. So
it's a lifetime in Vegas, that's for sure. But we have 2 great guests here on our final day, and we have our Global Chief Communications Officer, Emily Schulhoff, and needs no introduction, Marius Rubin, our Chief Operating Officer in Federa UK. First off, how has the week been? We'll start with you, Marius.
So this is my 4th time here. I'd love to say I've got used to it. It is still an absolute shock. There's obviously a bit of jet lag playing into that as well, but it really is the place for us to come and meet customers, to hear great stories. Ironically, it also appears to be the place to come to meet customers from the UK. They're really hard to get hold of when we're there, but when they're here, they all want to chat, say hello. So yeah, it's great.
Great. It's been a wonderful week. I have the opportunity to also be out here with one of our largest client teams, and we were able to bring several of our engineers, and it's been really exciting to get to see the tools that they use every day to make our work phenomenal for our clients, just what's the next generation and what they'll be able to do next.
it's cool. It's been fun both. I got to meet with some of our UK colleagues throughout the week. It's been really good. And then obviously, Emily, it's been great to connect with your team. So you may be able to start, Marius. I would love for you maybe some initial impressions, not so much of Vegas or a jet lag or all the wonderful things here, but maybe some initial thoughts could be what you may have learned, or even some of the conversations that you're having with your clients and what you guys are thinking about and how they would work and serve next year.
Yeah, so I think, even before coming, we probably suspected AI was going to be the big theme, and no surprises, that really has been the big theme. We saw it in the keynote. I think there was a ton of content there. I'm sure we'll get onto that. But also, even just trawling through the expo, which I think's got bigger this year. It's always an absolute shock but it's now just so many stands, so many companies. All of them have got the word AI somewhere on the sign. That's also when I've been speaking to my customers. I think that's been the thing that they are talking about. But I think it's kind of, as they're moving, they're changing. It's going for them, I think, from proof of concept now to something which is much more palatable, much more consumable from an enterprise perspective. And I think a lot of them have been getting surprisingly hands-on, actually. I think a lot of the execs feel like they want to be trying out these tools like Hero, some of the engineering capability, hands-on, so they really get a sense of what the difference is. In one case, it might have been 15, 20 years since they've done hands-on themselves, but they want to see it firsthand. So that's been really surprising, I think.
Emily, I'd love to go back a little bit. I've had a chance to spend time with you and your team. Part of the reason why we chose to bring them here is because they've done an amazing project this year with AWS. And so I'd love for you a chance to kind of just talk about a little bit of your experience. But one thing that was really struck out to me as I was talking with our team, this project's been going on for 6-8 months or something like that. And the pace of change on technology, AWS, AI this year, to where some of the most senior technical leaders on that project were essentially saying what we started with doing in early Q2 is obsolete today, and how fast it's going. And so I just love from your perspective, just kind of how you've led through that, but also just kind of how I know you're a bit of a proud kind of leader of that team. And so I'd love for you to have a chance to kind of share that too. So
yeah, certainly very proud of my team. They've done incredible work. I think what's interesting is, to your point, so much of the technology has changed, but what has not changed is their focus on why they are using AI. In this case, we are accelerating a roadmap that was supposed to take about 3.5 years to knock it out in 10 months. And from an organizational perspective, the biggest change we had to get through was not just the technology, but how they think about using the tools and the speed of adoption. Because tools are going obsolete so quickly, the hunger to learn from the team, the willingness to share and fail fast, and then really just to ensure that everything they do remains cutting edge, but then also bringing our client alongside that experience. How do we help them learn the latest and greatest? How do we help transform the way that the teams are structured? How do we really think about developing differently with tools?
Have you noticed that the clients that you're working with, there's more of an appetite for that now because it is moving so quickly? It feels like maybe a couple of years ago, there's this long timeline. They realize, we have time to figure out what that plan is for the people element, the human element. Do you see that happening from the client side of they understand now that time is everything and we've got to move quickly on this part of it?
Absolutely. In so many ways, technology is, time to market. How do we get there before our competitors do? And so how are you really using AI to get your strategic outcomes accomplished more rapidly? It's important that you're meeting your customers where they are, whether those are your internal employees, whether they're your end-to-end consumers. What are you doing to ensure that you are the first and the best in your market, increase profitability, and reduce costs?
That's great. one of the messages we've been saying a lot in North America for the last few months is that this excitement based on the fact that I think that right now, at least in our core business, I mean, regardless of your discipline, the technical side of that, the management side of that, the communication, the change side of it, there is so much to do and could do to serve our clients. And in fact, I think one of the big changes, we'll get into more year-end reflections in the next moments ahead. But like I've been amazed at someone, again, my background is mostly in org design, behavior, change, scaling through technology, is the MC, that classical MC component. So you have the technology, you're learning, you're growing. We see that here. Obviously, this is the bulk, but most of what's happening this week. But it is such an exciting thing for us to be able to bring all those disciplines together. And I actually think that the acceleration of change and the competitive advantage associated with that change and the willingness to go faster now, knowing that in some ways, just all these different tools give you more latitude not to have it all figured out, because you have actually now, Big Brother of sorts kind of can pull from so many different places in ways that was being done much more efficient. So actually, the way I think I'm talking with my clients on right now is really around the competitive advantage of change may be more drastic right now than in any different time. Whereas the conversation I was having with my clients earlier this year was around really efficiencies or acceleration using technology. It's a completely different question today. So I'm curious, what are you guys seeing on your side of the pond? Is it similar type dynamics, or even how, your role, you said that you're COO and you are the UK, but your background is tech, CTO, working through that. You're now having to, you kind of manage both sides of that, but I'm just kind of curious how you think about your clients or with your people.
So, I think there are these sort of two aspects to it. We haven't even talked about it much today, where it's like, we are still quite focused on, and our customers are still really quite focused on efficiencies. And that's, to some extent, I think that's the right answer. It's easily understandable. It allows us to get some immediate wins. If you're able to accelerate processes relatively simply, it'll start to free up some capital that you can then go and invest in other and bigger changes. And I think, if we look at what we're doing, and that's, whether the kind of technical backbone I was talking about, or the kind of more kind of fundamental basics on people training, that's really what we're doing. But what we haven't talked about, and what some of these, what we're hearing come through, and there was a lot about this in yesterday's keynote, where there was quite the data keynote, where there was quite a powerful demonstration of how things like a contact center experience can be transformed. It's like, what's the next phase? How much capacity do we have, and do our customers have to really completely reimagine how a process might work? So start from the very beginning of an interaction with a customer. In fact, before that, start with the whole question of acquisition of a customer, all the way through to how you serve them. And I think that's where, right now, quite a lot of these technologies do, they kind of now exist, or they've just been announced. They're consumable. But I think that's probably the next real effort. And that's, for both us, and in terms of, when I think about my role, we have to think really hard about not only what are the technology we want to use, but what is the right team, the right structure that we want to carry forward. And that will have to look different. And of course, that's like a real challenge. Our customers, a lot of them are saying, it's a real struggle when you talk about hiring more junior people early stage in their career. We're already seeing those kind of shocks almost start to come through in day-to-day discussions, because our customers are asking, do you want to use junior people? It's like, well, we need to have an environment where people can succeed and grow. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting time on that for sure. I don't know, Emily, your views?
Agreed.
No, Emily, I did have something for you. So essentially now, like, as we hear about these fast-paced changes, all these things happening from a human element, I feel like you're having to wake up into every day going, how am I going to deal with all these changes so quickly from a human aspect, which is arguably the most unpredictable aspect of the whole process, right? Like, you know what the tech is going to do, and you have an idea of how it will solve those problems. But then when you boil that down to when you're actually dealing with the people that will be the hands-on keyboard, or the ones who will be impacted in a positive way by it, how do you manage all that?
It's a great question. It's been really fascinating that I feel like so much of change management historically has been around how you get through a change. And one of the biggest things that we've worked on this year is, how do you get people comfortable that change is not going to stop? And so it's really that the only thing that's consistent is change. And how do we help people shift a mindset from, I'm going to learn one new thing, or I'm going to change one new process, to I am going to be willing to consistently evolve and grow. And so that has been a really big mindset shift for a lot of people, just around the fact that it's really about, how do I get to a point where, going back to Kevin's comment earlier, we've had a team where one of the tools that they used earlier no longer use it. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to learn tool B instead of tool A. It's I'm going to use the best tool when it's available and be willing to consistently upskill, upgrade, and learn new things.
I love getting into people's brains and hearing how I think. That's the genesis behind my question. And I actually have the same question for you, because you tell me you wake up and you think tech, of course, right? And that is when how you're going to conquer the day. And we mentioned at the beginning of the pod, everybody's got AI on their in the expo hall. And when you think about all the tools that are available and all the names that are getting thrown out and all these things, how do you approach that from your standpoint of, I've got to have a good grasp on what's out there? How do you, I'd just love to hear your approach of how you stay in tune with all that.
So there's a few ways. I mean, one is, and I think, kind of Emily picked up on the right, there's so much change happening. And I think we all owe it to ourselves. And, it's a thing I always recommend to people. Just stay on top of the trade press, right? It's such a simple thing. But and that can be anything, right? That can be a written press. So if there's a blog you like, and there's plenty of great options out there, it can be doing it through podcasts, whatever your kind of preferred method is. It's on all of us. It's particularly, I think, on leaders to just be there, kind of just dipping into that stream every day to understand what's happening and what's changing. And personally, I find a great way to do that is that if there are organizations or people in the industry who you really admire, who are also active, they kind of do some of that pre-filtering for you. But I think the other aspect is relying on the team. So it's also setting that expectation more widely with your people. Some of the most interesting technologies and opportunities, and some of which have fed directly into meetings we were having yesterday with a vendor. That's not me spotting it in the news. That's a member of the team saying, hey, I've seen this thing. It has real potential. It really resonates with us. It solves this problem. And then it's up to us on our side to kind of go and build the more corporate relationships to enable adoption and start to build kind of joint strategies. And I think that last bit as well maybe is also a component. Like, it's not the case, I think, anymore that companies can see themselves as being in this on their own. Like, we're going to be in a period where there's so much new technology and so much proliferation. Clearly, we can have our big strategic partners like AWS, but then it's also going to be spotting who's come up with some really powerful use case locally that serves a customer and building relationships with those companies. So kind of more joint solutioning than we might have seen previously.
I'll give you the opportunity for final thoughts. Vegas in general, AWS reInvent. Just would love to hear just some key takeaways and heading into the new year.
It's a great thought. When I think about Vegas, we're actually out here with 3 other conferences right now, and they are remarkably diverse conferences. And it's just really interesting to think about that in the element of technology too. It's a really great reminder that AI is everywhere, but it's going to impact everyone differently. And so as we think about organizational design, change management, how do we think about who our target audiences are? What are we doing? How are we making it applicable to them to bring each of our different groups along in what we're doing? And then personally, looking forward to the holidays, excited to spend Christmas with family and looking forward to kicking off 2026 strong.
You and I got the green
did.
the holiday,
yes,
holiday sweater memo.
That's right.
Marius?
So I think it's kind of 2 things for me, but almost, one of them is still like the atmosphere here and like the importance of it is so critical. And it's really interesting that it's technology for me that kind of forms that. But then the kind of flip side is when I kind of think, when you asked me the question at the opening, the thing that's really most kind of critical is it's the human aspect. So yes, we're here to see the technology, but a lot of the value, or the majority of the value, is in the humans who are here, the conversations, what we're learning from each other. And so it's kind of, I think, a really good little example of where even in this world, which is becoming hyper technology centric, where there's so much conversation about the AI aspects, it kind of keeps us rooted in. It's really about enabling human connectivity, whether it's for kind of personal purposes or for business purposes. And that's kind of, for me, really come to life as part of this trip. Going back, certainly looking forward to getting a bit of a rest. But I think, I'm very excited about 2026. I think, not just, I think there's so much new and exciting work we can be doing and so much powerful enablement for our customers. But also, I think we're going into 2026 with now a really rich product set that we can offer. And I think also great opportunities to come back, do more things like this, work more collaboratively globally. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. I'm very proud of that.
Awesome. Marius, Emily, thank you all so much for joining us. Plenty more to come. Thanks for joining Pure Signal. We'll see you soon.